Hey y'all, this is Elise, and this is a trigger warning for this podcast episode. The following podcast episode talks about depression, self-harm, and suicide. And if you are not in a headspace to listen to this episode today, that is okay. You can skip it, you can pause it, come back to it another day, but do whatever you need to do to take care of yourself today. Hey y'all, and welcome to this episode of the OncoPT podcast. I'm going to be completely honest with you. When I was setting up my podcast episodes for the spring and going into the summer, I have a spreadsheet where I put down different ideas. And then as I schedule interviews, I will plug those into my schedule. And I kind of have this plan for what are the upcoming episodes for the next few months. And this one was not on the list. However, this is an episode that needs to be recorded. As much as I did not want to record it, I frankly have been avoiding it. I think for reasons that we'll get into shortly, but by avoiding this topic and by not talking about it, it's doing a disservice to you and me and to our patients. And that doesn't help anybody. So to make a very long and painful story short, if I can, I don't know that I can. At the time of this recording, I had a family member die a few weeks ago, tragically by suicide. And over the last couple weeks, I wasn't very close with this family member. They were several years older than me. I didn't have the opportunity to have a very close relationship with them growing up. And so a lot of this came as a surprise to me, mainly because I didn't know this person. But this family member, as we unfortunately found out in the days leading up to the funeral and then after the funeral, this family member unfortunately suffered and struggled with depression and other mental health issues for many, 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 many years. And there's so much, right, that goes into, this person grew up, again, like I said, a few years older than me. The conversation around mental illness is different today than what it was previously. There's so much that goes into this unfortunate, tragic set of circumstances around this family member's death. But one of the things that I've been reflecting on a lot over the past couple weeks is this is absolutely a no-win situation. And let me be clear, death is never a winning situation. But what I've been talking about, I've been reflecting on myself. I've been talking this over with my sister because she and I very much, we talk all the time about lots of different things. We've both very much, really been realizing and talking through the fact that the aftermath of this unfortunate, unnecessary death of this family member has really led to, or the aftermath of this is that there is a very hurt family who is really struggling with this. And unfortunately, everybody is losing in this situation. And the reason that I'm talking about this is not to air out my dirty laundry, okay? That's not what I'm saying here. But one of the things that was so shocking about this whole experience is how long this has been going on and how hidden this was from so many people. One of the things that was so beautiful about this experience, if there was some beauty in it, is that we got to meet a lot of this family member's friends and those in his community that he impacted. And he clearly made a really wonderful impact in his community and on those around him. But it was also apparent that this was something that was not known. This was not discussed. And many, many people were very shocked by it. And of course, I don't think anyone is expecting a suicide, but it was really eye-opening to see just how many people were shocked by it, including myself. And then as kind of part of that, I don't know that I think I've been to one other funeral before where it was so well attended. Like, again, because of this family member's involvement in their community, he had connected with a lot of different people from different organizations, both through job and volunteer. And the amount of people who showed up this funeral was shocking in a really beautiful, touching way. But it was also a reminder of just how sad it was and how much this family member is going to be missed. Like, the fact that he touched so many people who showed up to his funeral and who are there for him, right? And who were there from him for him, excuse me, but he didn't know how to reach out. He didn't know how to connect. There was a lot of shame that this person felt around their mental illness, to the point that they felt like this was the only option. And again, there's so much in this, and I've been grappling with this, I've been struggling with this, but I think it really presented an opportunity to have a very candid conversation, a conversation that I've been avoiding on this podcast, because generally, like, I'd like to keep it upbeat and energetic and encouraging and inspirational as much as I can. But I think in doing so, I think I've been contributing to a little bit of a culture that's like, everything is fine and everything is okay and everything's going to be okay. And this almost like false front, this false positivity that I've been curating on the podcast in order to try and support both myself, but also other onco-PTs newer to this, I think is kind of ignoring a lot of the hard, the sad that happens in healthcare, but I think especially in oncology, physical therapy, but even just being a human, right? Like, being a human and being alive is really hard sometimes. And like I mentioned, it was so beautiful to see how many people were at this funeral and supporting the family of this family member now that this person is gone. But it also was tremendously sad to see that there were so many people there who deeply loved this individual. But this family member was so down in this pit of despair for so long that they felt like this was the only option they had, the only solution that they had to end a lifetime of suffering. And it's really sad that it took an event like this to see that. And I know that as an outside person, obviously, like, it's very easy for me to sit back and be like, wow, look at all this love, look at all the support that was there for this family member. They just didn't know it, or they just didn't know how to reach out. And again, that comes from, I think, a tremendous amount of privilege of being like, I'm over here looking at this all happen. I'm not experiencing what he was experiencing. And one of the things that was said in the aftermath of the funeral was talking about how, like, as tragic as this is, this has opened up an opportunity for that community to maybe have more conversations about mental health and depression and suicide that maybe was not there previously. And I have to give a shout out. The pastor who delivered the eulogy at this service talked about the suicide and crisis hotline and what we can and what we should be doing, like what resources are available for when we are experiencing that. And it was not a like, this is a very isolated incident, whatever. This was very much like, there are people in this community who are suffering and experiencing the same thing. And this could be an opportunity to actually get the help that we need because we're sparking these conversations. And so, again, I'm kind of kicking myself that it's taken a personal tragedy like this to start having these conversations on the podcast, but this is something that I want to commit to moving forward, Because as much as I talk about caring for the patient, and like that's why we're here, because we're oncology physical therapist or other cancer rehab professionals who want to work with and better serve patients experiencing one of the worst diagnoses of their existence, we are still humans at the core who need help, who need love, who need support, and who experience mental illness. I myself have struggled a long time with anxiety and depression. And that's something that I'm not going to lie, like I'm being very vulnerable here. That's not something that I really talk about a whole lot. And I think a part of that comes from feeling ashamed that I don't have it together. I very much like, as I was growing up, I always had this like, I'm in control, which is laughable. Like, I'm very aware of how funny that sounds saying it out loud. But I always prided myself on like, I'm in control. I get things done. I'm a really accomplished, determined individual. And it wasn't until I really got to physical therapy school where I started really experiencing this depression and anxiety that I have really never experienced before. And it turned my world upside down. Again, like complete transparency, complete vulnerability here. I almost failed out of PT school my second year of PT school because I was so depressed and anxious. And I'm so grateful I had my sister and my then boyfriend, now husband, to really recognize that something was going on and to help me get pulled out of that. Because I know, like, if I had kept going down that same path, I don't think I would be here today as the Onco PT, as the host of this podcast where I talk all about physical therapy and working with, cancer rehab. And I'm so grateful to that I had a community who and a support system who recognized that I was struggling and I needed help and I didn't know how to ask for help. I didn't always know what I was experiencing because it sometimes felt like I was so like internally in my brain, like I couldn't get out of it. That's not a good descriptor, but that's what I remember feeling. And so having that support system to reach out and say, hey, you're not okay. Like, we need to do something about this. I will never forget that. That was actually when this was all going down for me. PT school, second year, it was October because our state physical therapy conference was happening up in Arlington, which is very close to my home of Fort Worth. And so I was actually going to stay with my sister during this conference. It was perfect arrangements. And so the week before, I like had a complete breakdown. And so my boyfriend, again, now husband Adrian, came over, and I just remember like he stayed with me as long as I needed him to get out of this immediate crisis that I was in. And then he thankfully had the foresight to call my sister when he had left and said, okay, like she's okay now, but she is coming up to see you this weekend. Like, you need to talk to her about this also. And so like they came together and really helped. Like, again, I cannot express my profound appreciation for them pulling me out of just that level of hopelessness that I felt. And I'm so grateful to that. And again, I am not saying all of this to be like, oh, woe is me, I'm so sad, whatever. I'm sharing this because I wish when I was experiencing that, I had known somebody talk about their experience, because I think that would have helped me put words to what I was feeling and maybe know how to get help. And I wish that had been the experience for this family member who died. Because again, like the profound loss of it all, obviously the loss of the family member, but the complete loss of this family unit and the rippling impacts that this has in this community, in this family, it's so much bigger than I thought. And it even for me not having a very close relationship with this person, I was so surprised how much it affected me and how it continues to affect me. Like right now we're a week out and I'm still like breaking down on this podcast. But I think that's just the impact that the loss of one person can have. And I want you to know that I would feel the same level of loss. And I know that your family members and your friends and your colleagues and your patients would feel this same level of loss if you weren't with us. And you matter. And you are loved. You are cared about. You are supported. Sometimes it doesn't always feel that way. Sometimes we can't always feel it. Sometimes we can't always see it. But one of the things that I have been so grateful for and so thankful for over the past couple days is the amount of people in this OncoPT community who have reached out to me. And I haven't necessarily super publicized everything that's going on, but there have been some people who have I talk to regularly and they've picked up on things, or I've outright told them. And the love and outpouring of support that I have felt, like people asking if they can call me, I can talk about things, and I can sit on the phone with them and just be angry and mad about things and sad about things, and they just sit and listen. It has been so appreciated. I'm so grateful to you, and I'm so grateful that I have this community. And I want you to know that you have this same community too. Being a PT is hard. Being an onco-PT is hard. Being a healthcare professional is hard. Being a human is hard a lot of days. But there is a community here who loves you and supports you and cares about you and would feel loss if you were not here. So as much as I talk about on this podcast about, here's the latest and greatest on, I don't know, proton therapy, because that episode was recent. It was so fun to do. We talk about these, the latest and greatest advances in cancer treatment and the side effects and impairments from cancer, and how can we better treat the side effects and impairments from cancer and cancer treatment that our patients are experiencing. It has to start with us. We have to take care of ourselves first before we can take good, great care of our patients. It starts at home. It starts with you. You have to take care of yourself if you're going to be able to fully show up and take care of your patients. Coincidentally, in all of this, back in 2020, again, this is one of those serendipitous, funny, ironic moments. I wrote a blog post for Cancer Rehab and Integrative Medicine. That's Dr. Angela Wicker Ramos down in Austin. If you haven't followed her, definitely follow her, because she is absolutely my role model in what she's doing. She, in the throes of the early days of the pandemic, was we need to show up for our community. And she did this amazing thing where she basically turned and pivoted and went entirely online. And so part of this was guest blog posts. And I was so grateful to be asked to write a blog post. And I wrote one. And it was all about, and now I, of course, can't remember the exact title, but it was an empty pitcher can't fill a cup, I think was the title that I used. Meaning that if I'm trying to fill up my teacup with hot water so I can make tea, I cannot pour from an empty pitcher and expect to be able to make tea, because there is no water going from the pitcher into the cup, or going from the kettle into the cup so I can make tea. And the message here is that if you are not taking care of yourself, if you are not showing up and taking care of yourself first, you are not going to be able to show up and give of yourself and take care of your patients. You just can't. And I know that there is a certain degree of survival happening where you can kind of get through some really tough things, but for a very, very temporary period of time. And it's so much shorter than we think it is. And if you're not taking care of yourself first, if you are not caring for yourself first, your tank is going to run out and you're not going to be able to show up for your patients. And I say this with the most love possible. You can't do it. You cannot do it, because what will happen is you will grow to resent the work that you're doing. You may resent your workplace, your colleagues, even your patients. And that is no environment in which we need to be treating these patients, especially this most vulnerable of patient populations who need and deserve our utmost respect and love and support. But it has to start with us first. You have to care for you first. And I mean that with every fiber of my being. It is up to us to care for ourselves. It is up to you to care for yourself, because I kind of go back and forth on this. There's part of me that is like, there is no one coming to save you. And I'm not trying to be like a super negative Nancy on this, but like from a institutional kind of like systemic level, there is not someone who's going to, there is not like an organization, at least in most that I've encountered in the healthcare industry, who are going to swoop in and be able to identify so-and-so is having a problem. We're going to, swoop in and take care of everything. And I'm going to kind of juxtapose that. I'm going to like contradict it a little bit in a little bit, but hang tight to that. There is not, at least right now, a widespread effort that is going to come in and save you and fix everything because they've identified that it's a problem. That is probably not what is going to happen here. You have to be the one to say, you know what? I'm feeling down. I'm feeling sad. I'm feeling depressed. I'm feeling hopeless. Whatever that is you're feeling. I'm feeling anxious, right? We can't forget about good old anxiety. I'm feeling these things and I need to get help for it. And I know as someone who has experienced that level of, I don't know how to get out of what I have got myself into, like mentally wise, that can be really hard. So I know, like, I'm kind of going back and forth here, but work with me here. We have to save ourselves first. I really like this analogy from the Financial Feminist podcast. If you're in an airplane and it depressurizes, like it loses oxygen, the instructions are you put on that oxygen mask first onto you, and then you help others with their oxygen mask. And this is not a selfish thing, right? I know that sometimes that has been like, we have this like martyr mentality, especially onco PTs, I think particularly embody this. It is not selfish to put on your own oxygen mask first. In fact, you should. Because again, like if you're on an airplane, this is your flight attendant speaking. In the event of a depressurization, blah, 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 oxygen mask will come down. And I'm doing my little, if you're watching this on YouTube right now, you know that I'm demonstrating. Your oxygen mask will come down from the ceiling. Place yours on first, tighten the straps, and then assist others next to you, such as small children. And in this example, we are putting on our own oxygen mask first. We are caring for ourselves first so that we can then help the small child, or in this case, our patient who needs our skilled services and skilled help and caring, loving support. We then are able to help them put on their oxygen mask. Again, I know we're doing a lot of like airplane metaphors here, but I really, really resonate with that. Of you have to care for yourself first, and then you can help others. And you have to start, because if everybody was so busy in an airplane that is losing oxygen, if we were so busy like, oh, no, not me, let me help you. At some point, people are going to start passing out because they don't have oxygen because they wouldn't put on their own damn oxygen mask first. And that does not help anybody. That does not help the child or the elderly person with mobility issues in the plane seat next to you get their own oxygen mask down and on if you're passed out because you didn't put yours on first. I'm serious. Like, it has to start with us first. And we've got to cut out this martyr mentality. When you need help, ask for help. When you need time away, ask for time away. And it's not even, hey boss, like I was wondering if I could have some time away. This is get the time away. Tell them you need time away. Okay? None of this like, please. No, you tell them you need help. Because if you can't show up and do your job and serve those patients, that is ultimately, like, if we're going to talk money here, that is absolutely affecting their bottom line. And they need to care about that. They should also be caring about you as a human, but I digress, right? Like, this is something that absolutely should matter to your administration, your managers, your supervisors, your leaders, because if you're not able to show up and care for those patients in the manner that they deserve, they're not going to be able to do the things that they need to do. Patients are not going to be able to get the help that they need. So when you've identified that I need help, I need the love, I need the care now, get out there and take it. We need you. We need you in this amazing field of ours. And you can't do that if you're tired, if you're burned out, if you are depressed, if you're anxious, all of these other things that are totally just like morally injured. That's the other word I was looking for. That's the other phrase I was looking for. Get help. Ask for help. Ask for help multiple times. Ask for help from multiple people. Get professional help. And I have included some resources at the bottom of this blog post in the podcast episode show notes here. But when you've identified that you need help, do not feel embarrassed. Do not feel ashamed. Do not feel weak when asking for help, because we all need help from time to time, and it's okay. And if you ask, I bet there are going to be way more people who show up for you to give you that help that you need. Truly, I truly, truly believe that. And again, it's sad to me that it took the death of this family member and then the funeral to see just how many people cared so deeply for this family member. Like, this could have been prevented altogether. Unfortunately, it totally could have prevented, but here we are. And I don't want to lose you. You mean so much to me. You mean so much to this community. You mean so much to your patients, your friends, your family. Everyone that you come into contact with, you mean so much to them, and we would be lost without you. You matter. And I mean that from the bottom of my heart, I mean that. I really do. Now, as PTs, I know we like to pride ourselves on, we're fit most of the time. Most of the time, right? I'm in a little bit of an exercise rut myself, but PTs are healthy, PTs are fit, like, we know so much about health. That doesn't mean that we are exempt from experiencing health issues, including mental health issues. And so it's important for us, for you and me, to recognize that mental health issues like depression and anxiety and burnout are not uncommon among healthcare professionals. In fact, I believe that healthcare professionals may even be at an increased risk of experiencing these things, including maybe even experiencing higher rates of depression and suicide compared to the general population. Acknowledging that mental health is real, first of all, acknowledging and accepting that mental health conditions and issues and challenges are common and are something that benefit from health is the first step in actually seeking the help that we need when we encounter these situations. I feel that we are pretty good in general about recognizing when a patient is experiencing these kinds of challenges. I know with my patients, I'm frequently asking them about depression, anxiety, other, psychological issues. I don't think we are as good of recognizing that in ourselves. And again, we have to be doing that so that we can show up for our patients. So some workplaces will have different programs such as EAPs. These are employee assistance programs where they can connect you with different professional help. Maybe that's a psychologist, a psychiatrist, counselor, support groups, peer support groups, mental health hotlines, online counseling services. I know there is a plethora available today, and even like apps that can help with mental health. But these resources, again, depending on what resonates with you, what helps you, can provide support and guidance and counseling to help you cope with the stress and the frustration and maybe the sadness and the feelings, the experiences that come with being a healthcare professional, and can help you address different issues you may be experiencing, again, related to depression, anxiety, and suicide. And I know that after this experience, I am going to be seeking out professional help. I've kind of been just like trying to get by on my own this whole time, and this has been a real wake-up call for me that, one, I don't have to do that. I shouldn't be doing that, but like I really do need the extra support. I really do need this help. And again, I'm recording this podcast not to say like, everyone look at me and all the things that I'm doing. Woe is me. Feel bad for me. No, I'm saying like, if this is, I wish someone had talked to me about this when I was experiencing that depression and anxiety in PT school 5+ years ago. I wish I had known that this was as common as what it is, because I didn't grow up having these conversations. Like even now as an adult, or like some days an adult, I have a hard time verbalizing my feelings. And I know that makes me sound like a toddler. I think sometimes emotionally I am a toddler. And I I talk about this frequently with my inner circle of like, I don't always have the words to describe what I'm feeling, but I'm feeling big feelings and I don't know what to do with that information. And that's not good. And so I want to get professional help for that, because I know that is going to help me show up better as a human, to take better care of myself, but also to establish and maintain really powerful personal relationships, both with friends, with family, but also with my patients and in my community. And that's really, really important to me. And I can't do that by myself. I need the help. And so I'm going to be getting the help. And again, I don't know what that looks like for you, but this is kind of my journey. This is what these like revelations have kind of been in the aftermath of, like I said, this family member death, the funeral, and just all of, frankly, like the chaos that comes from these kinds of situations. It is really important that we take action to prevent suicide. Suicide is preventable. It really is. And this is a really important part of our job, because of course, like you've probably gone through some level of training for awareness of this in patients, but again, we have to turn that and reflect it internally too. So if this is something that you experience or have experienced, or you know someone who is experiencing a crisis, right? Maybe this is like suicide, but also some other kind of mental health crisis, emotional crisis, the number 988. So if you pick out your phone, pick up your phone and dial 988. This is the number for the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. So this is a 24/7, literally confidential, free service here in the United States where a person can call and get emotional support from trained individuals to navigate this suicidal crisis or emotional distress that they may be in. And again, I don't know the full circumstances of the situation. I don't know what happened behind closed doors with this family member. But I wish this was a tool that they had used, because I think that they would be here today. And I don't want that for any other person to feel. There's a lot of questions left unanswered. There's a lot of big feelings still. Again, like, can you tell I have a hard time expressing what I feel with words, but I just know that I'm feeling big feelings. There's a lot of that, and there's going to continue to be a lot of that, not just, of course, with me, but with this family member's immediate family and their immediate community. Like, this has such a profound, lasting impact that is going to affect those close to this family member for the rest of their life. And it's not something that they can undo. And it makes me sad to think of these individuals who are picking up the pieces of their lives after this horrible tragedy that could have been prevented. And I don't want that for you. I want you to know that you are loved, you are supported, you are cared for, and you matter in this OncoPT community. And I really do mean that. I want to leave you with, this is actually how I closed the blog post that I wrote a few years ago, but I didn't know if I could write it better, and I thought I did a pretty good job explaining how I was feeling. So, last thing that I'll close with. Dear healthcare professional, dear OncoPT, you are so loved, valued, and appreciated. It may not feel like it, but you are everything to your patients, your colleagues, your friends, your family, and this OncoPT community. Do not give up hope, and please take care of yourself. Again, the number for the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline is 988, available 24/7 here in the United States. And until next time, this is Elise with the OncoPT. And remember, you are exactly the physical therapist that your patients with cancer need. So let's get to work.